Welcome to my video on simple event probability. So a simple event is where one experiment happens at a time and it will be having a single outcome. So we know that probability of an event is a ratio that compares the number of favorable outcomes to the number of possible outcomes. Outcomes occur at random if each outcome occurs by chance. So basically, probabilities is a chance of something occurring. So two events that are the only ones that can possibly happen are complementary events. The sum of the probabilities of complementary events is 1. Okay? So flipping a coin would be an example of complementary event because you can either get heads or you can get tails. Okay, let's look at example number 1. What is the probability of rolling a multiple of 3 on a number cube, marked with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 on its faces? So you can kind of follow along here. A multiple of 3 would be counting by the number of 3. So 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. So if I count by 3s, I get 3 and 6. So notice I get 3 and 6. So that's 2 out of 6 because there are 6 sides on a die. So 2 out of 6. And then I could simplify that by dividing top and bottom by 2, and I would get 1/3. So the probability of rolling a multiple of 3 is 1/3, or about 33.3%. So to get the percent, they just did 1 divided by 3, which was 0.33 repeating, and then changed it to a percent by moving it 2 places to the right. So 33.3%. And notice there's a P out in front. That just means probability. Okay. So let's look at example 2. And I'm going to show you a little bit differently based on the previous example. So in the previous example, we know that there are 2 multiples of 3. So this question says, what is the probability of not rolling a multiple of 3 on a number cube, marked 1 through 6? So we know that there are 2 that are, so to get not, we can take, there are 6 possible choices, so we can do 6 minus 2. And 6 minus 2 is 4. So we have 4 out of 6 that would be not multiples of 3. And we could count them 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 out of 6 would not be multiples of 3. And then we could simplify that by dividing top and bottom by 2. So go ahead and do this. 4 divided by 2 is 2, and 6 divided by 2 is 3. So we get 2/3. So the probability of not rolling a multiple of 3 is 2/3, or about 66.7%. So they did 2 divided by 3, got 0.6 repeating, and then they rounded it to moved it 2 to the right, and rounded it to the nearest tenth, so 66.7%. Okay, now let's try some more together here. And then you're going to do the back of this paper on your own. So a set of 30 cards is numbered 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 30. Suppose you pick a card at random without looking. Find the probability of each event. Write as a fraction in simplest form. So if we wrote the numbers 1 through 30 and wanted to find the probability of 12, how many times would you see 12 written on a card? Good, only 1 time. And since there's 30 cards, it would be 1 out of 30. And I cannot simplify 1 out of 30, so I circle my final answer. Question number 2 says probability of 2 or 3. So how many would have the number 2 or 3 written on it? Good, 2. Because there's 1, 2 and 1, 3, so that's a total of 2 out of 30. What can I divide top and bottom by? 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 30 divided by 2 is 15. So 1 out of 15. Odd number. Remember, odd numbers are any number that ends in 1, 3, 5, 7, or 9. So if we think about all the odd numbers, we could count them 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 15, 17, 19, 21, 23, 25, 27, 29. That would be a total of 15 odd numbers out of 30. Now, most people would divide by 5 and then have to divide again. But I notice, I looked at my top number and I go, okay, well, I know 15 goes into 15. Does 15 go into 30? And it sure does. Now, that trick won't always work, but it's worth a shot to save on simplifying. If the top number can go in evenly into this number, then you can divide top and bottom by that number. So 15 divided by 15 is 1, and 30 divided by 15 is 2. So the probability of an odd number is 1/2. Probability of a multiple of 5. Remember, count by 5s. And we have to go till 30. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. How many would that be? 6 out of 30. Now I know you're probably thinking you could divide by 2, which you could. But I notice the top number is 6, and I notice that 6 goes into 30. So I can divide top and bottom by 6. 6 divided by 6 is 1, and 30 divided by 6 is 5. So the probability of a multiple of 5 would be 1/5. Number 5 says, what's the probability of not a multiple of 5? Well, I know that there are 6 multiples of 5 from the previous example. So if there are 30 cards, I can do 30 minus 6 to get how many are not. Because if there are 6 that are, then that means every other card is not a multiple of 5. So 30 minus 6 is 24 out of 30. Now they're both even, so I could divide by 2, but I'm going to divide by 6 because I know that 6 goes into 24 and 30 evenly. 24 divided by 6 is 4, and 30 divided by 6 is 5. So 4/5. And number 6, probability of less than or equal to 10. Now, the key is less than or equal to 10. So it can equal 10. So there are 10 numbers between 1 and 10. So it's 10 out of 30. They both end in a 0, so I can divide top and bottom by 10. 10 divided by 10 is 1, and 30 divided by 10 is 3. So 1 out of 3. Now, we've talked about what a multiple is. We've talked about odd number. Remember, even number is anything that ends in 2, 4, 6, 8, or 10. Okay? And I'm going to remind you of a couple other things, and I'm also going to attach the definitions to your packet so that if you have to look up what one of these words mean, you can. So another word I want to talk about is factor. So factor are numbers that we can multiply together to get another number. So I'll just show you right here. You don't have to write this down, but factors of 4 would be 1 and 4, because 1 times 4 is 4, and 2 times 2 is 4, so 2 is also a factor. Now I don't write 2 twice, I just write it 1 time. So 4 would have 3 factors. Okay? Now, a prime number is a whole number with factors of 1 in itself only. And remember, 1 is not prime. Okay? So some examples of prime numbers, and you don't have to write this down again, are 2, 3, 5, 7, and 11. Because the only numbers you can multiply together to get these are 1 in itself. So 1 times 2, that's it. 1 times 3, that's it. That's the only way you can get 3. 1 times 5, 1 times 7, 1 times 11. So those are all prime numbers. Now a composite number is a whole number with more than 2 factors. And there's only one even number that's not composite. Do you know what it is? Only even number that's not composite is 2. That is not composite. But every other number, 4 is composite, 6 is composite, 8 is composite, and 9 is an odd number, but it's composite because it has factors of 1, 9, and 3, because 3 times 3 is 9. So, oh, and also 1 is not composite either. So 1 is not prime or composite. So I will attach that sheet to your classwork to help you out. That concludes our mini lesson on simple events. I hope you have a great day.